The rain was cold, but the shame burned hotter. My 10-month-old son, Leo, was heavy on my hip, his little head tucked into the crook of my neck, oblivious to the fact that his mother was currently homeless, injured, and walking 3 miles in a thunderstorm because her mother-in-law decided she needed a lesson in gratitude. When the black Silverado pulled up next to me, I didn't even look up. I thought it was just another driver annoyed that I was walking on the shoulder. Then the window rolled down. No shouting. No drama. Just my dad's voice, low and terrifyingly calm. "Why are you walking? Where's your car?" I froze. I looked at him, my dad, Thomas. A retired structural engineer, a man who believes in physics and concrete, not feelings. I hadn't told him anything. I'd been hiding the hell inside my marriage for 2 years because I wanted to be the independent daughter he raised. His mom took it, I whispered, the rain dripping off my nose. She said I'm lucky they let me stay. My dad didn't blink. He didn't ask for details. He didn't ask why I was limping. He just unlocked the passenger door. "Get in the car. We're fixing this tonight." That was the moment my life fractured into before and after. You see, people think leaving a toxic marriage is a decision. It's not. It's a collapse. And what happened in the next 4 hours wasn't a rescue mission. It was a demolition. The silence inside my dad's truck was suffocating. The heater was blasting, but I couldn't stop shivering. I waited for the lecture. I waited for him to tell me, "I told you so," because he never liked Mark. He never trusted Mark's mother, Brenda. But he didn't say a word. He just gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white, his eyes fixed on the road, driving straight toward the house I had just been kicked out of. To understand why I was terrified, you have to understand the dynamic. I'm Sarah. I'm 26. I have a degree in graphic design. I'm not stupid. But psychological abuse doesn't care if you're smart. It's slow. It's like carbon monoxide. You don't know you're dying until you can't move. It started with the help. When Leo was born, Mark suggested we move in with his mother, Brenda, just for a few months, to save for a down payment. Brenda lived in a sprawling colonial in a wealthy suburb. It made sense on paper. But the rent wasn't money. The rent was my autonomy. First, it was comments about my cooking. Then it was rewriting my schedule. Then it was the finances. Mark handed his paycheck directly to her for safekeeping, leaving me to beg for diaper money.
And today?
Today was the crescendo. My dad turned the truck onto the gravel driveway of Brenda's estate. The house was glowing with warm, yellow light. It looked cozy. It looked like a home. It was a lie. "Dad," I finally spoke, my voice cracking. "Please, don't make a scene." Mark said if I cause drama, he'll file for full custody. He says I'm unstable. My dad put the truck in park. He turned to me, and for the first time, I saw the rage behind the calm. "Sarah, look at your ankle." I looked down. It was swollen to the size of a grapefruit, purple and angry. "How did that happen?" he asked. "I fell." I lied. "It was a reflex." "Sarah." "Brenda needed the gutters cleaned," I whispered. "Mark was playing Call of Duty. She said if I didn't do it, I was a freeloader." The ladder slipped. "And they didn't take you to the doctor?" Brenda said, "She said x-rays are expensive, and I was just looking for attention." My dad unbuckled his seatbelt. The sound of the click was like a gunshot in the quiet cab. "Stay here with Leo." "No." I grabbed his arm. "You don't understand. The car, the Honda, she took the keys because I refused to apologize for falling. She said the car is under her roof, so it's her property. If you go in there shouting, she'll call the cops. She knows everyone in this town." My dad looked at my hand on his arm, then back at my face. "I'm not going to shout, Sarah. I'm done shouting. I'm going to end it." He got out of the truck. He didn't storm up the walk. He walked with a terrifying, deliberate slowness. I watched through the rain-streaked windshield as he approached the oak front door. He didn't knock. He had a spare key, one I gave him for emergencies. He just unlocked it and stepped inside. I couldn't stay in the car. If this was going to blow up, I needed to witness it. I needed to protect him from Brenda's lies. I shifted Leo to my other hip, gritted my teeth against the screaming pain in my ankle, and hobbled after him. When I limped into the foyer, the scene was surreal. Brenda was in the living room, sitting on her beige velvet armchair, a glass of Chardonnay in hand, watching a reality show. Mark was on the sofa, scrolling on his phone. They looked so normal, like they hadn't just sent a limping woman and a baby out into a storm. They jumped when they saw my dad standing in the archway. He was soaking wet, his gray hair plastered to his forehead, standing 6'2" in his work boots on her Persian rug. "Thomas?" Brenda gasped, clutching her pearls, literally clutching them. "What on earth? You can't just barge in here." Mark stood up, looking nervous. "Hey, Tom. Listen, Sarah just took a walk to cool off. She's being—" "Sit down," my dad said. He didn't yell it. He said it like he was commanding a dog. And weirdly, Mark sat. Brenda, however, stood up, her face flushing pink. "Get out of my house. You have no right to be here. Sarah is having a tantrum, and we are handling it as a family. If you don't leave, I'm calling the police." "Call them," Dad said. He reached into his jacket pocket. I thought he was reaching for a weapon. My heart stopped. He pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was wet from the rain, but legible. "While you're dialing," Dad said, stepping further into the room, "you might want to explain to the officers why you're in possession of a stolen vehicle." Brenda scoffed. "Stolen? That car is." "That car," Dad interrupted, his voice cutting through the air like a blade, "is a 2022 Honda CR-V. I bought it. I paid cash. The title is in Sarah's name. I have a copy of the title right here in my phone, and the DMV records match. You taking those keys and refusing to let her leave? That's grand theft auto and unlawful imprisonment." The room went silent. The only sound was the TV in the background. Brenda stuttered. We are holding it as collateral. Sarah owes us for rent. She's been living here for free." This was the hook she always used. The guilt. The idea that I was a parasite. My dad laughed. It was a cold, dry sound. "Collateral? Let's talk about finances, Brenda." "Let's do that." He walked over to the dining table and pulled out a chair, spinning it around and sitting on it backwards. He looked like he was about to conduct a business meeting in the middle of a war zone. "Mark," Dad said, looking at my husband, "how much do you make a year?" Mark looked at his mom, then at me. About 45,000. "And Sarah?" Dad asked. "She's just a freelancer," Brenda spat. "She makes pennies." "I made 60,000 last year," I said from the doorway. My voice was trembling, but I said it. Mark flinched. He had never told his mother how much I actually made. He told her I was struggling so she wouldn't expect us to move out. Dad nodded. "Right. And where did that money go, Sarah?" "To the renovations," I said. "The kitchen, the master bath, the landscaping." Brenda went pale. "You see," Dad said, looking at Brenda, "I'm an engineer, but I'm also meticulous about records. Sarah sent me photos of every check she wrote, every invoice. Mom needs a new granite countertop. Mom needs the roof patched. You've been funneling my daughter's income into your property equity for 2 years." He pulled out his phone. I did a quick calculation in the car. Renovation costs totaling $38,000. Plus rent, payments Mark claims he gave you from Sarah's account. Conservatively, you're sitting on 50 grand of my daughter's money. That was a gift. Brenda shrieked. "She lives here." "A gift is given freely," Dad said. "Coercion is different, but we can argue that in court. What we're going to do tonight is an extraction." "You're not taking anything," Brenda hissed. "This is my house." "Mark," Dad said, ignoring her, "you have a choice right now. You can stay here with your mother and the granite countertops your wife paid for. Or you can pack a bag, get in your wife's car, and come with us. But if you stay, you are done. No coming back in a week begging for forgiveness. You decide right now. Are you a husband and a father? Or are you a son?" This was the moment. The pivotal narrative beat. I looked at Mark, the man I married, the man who promised to protect me. He looked at me limping, wet, holding his son. Then he looked at Brenda, who was glaring at him with eyes that promised hell if he disobeyed. Mark looked down at his shoes. Tom, you're being unreasonable. Mom just wants what's best for us. Sarah shouldn't have disrespected her. The air left my lungs. It wasn't surprise. It was confirmation. The man I loved was dead. He had been dead for a long time. I was just visiting his grave. Okay, Dad said. He stood up. Choice made. He walked over to me, took Leo from my arms gently, and handed him to me to hold properly, so he could support my weight. Go to the truck, Sarah. We need my clothes, I said. Leo's diapers. My laptop. We'll get them, Dad said. She is not taking furniture. Brenda yelled. Dad stopped at the door. He turned back. Brenda, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., my attorney will be filing a lien against this property for the value of the improvements Sarah funded. We have the receipts. Unless. He let the word hang there. Unless what? Brenda whispered. Unless you let me and my friends clear out the nursery and Sarah's office right now. No interference. You sit on that couch and shut up. We take what's hers. We leave the granite. And we call it even on the rent. Brenda calculated. She knew she couldn't afford a lawsuit. She knew the renovations added value to her house that she didn't pay for. Greed battled pride in her eyes. Greed won. Take her junk, she spat. Just get her out. I hobbled back to the truck. I sat there with Leo, the heater finally warming my bones. I expected Dad to come out with a box or two. Instead, 3 more headlights appeared in the driveway. I watched in confusion as 2 pickup trucks and a van pulled up. Men hopped out. I recognized them. Uncle Mike, Dad's friend Jerry, my cousin David. They didn't knock. They marched into the house like a special ops team. My dad had called them while he was driving to get me. He knew. He knew Mark wouldn't come. He knew Brenda wouldn't let go easily. He had planned the extraction before he even saw the bruise on my ankle. For the next hour, I sat in the cab and watched my life be disassembled. They brought out the crib, the changing table, my desk, my ergonomic chair, box after box of clothes. They worked in a silent, efficient rhythm. Then, I saw Mark come to the window of the house. He was watching them strip his son's room. He looked small. He looked like a child watching the adults handle business. He raised a hand, like he was going to wave at me. I turned my head and looked at Leo. I didn't wave back. When the trucks were loaded, Dad came back to the Silverado. He climbed in soaked to the bone again. He looked tired. He looked old. But his hands were steady. He handed me a set of keys. My Honda keys. David is going to drive your car back to my place, he said. You ride with me. Dad, I said, the tears finally starting to spill. Thank you. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you. He put the truck in reverse. Sarah, listen to me. You don't apologize for surviving. You survived. Now you live. We pulled out of the driveway. I watched the house disappear in the rearview mirror. The warm yellow windows, the perfect lawn, the prison I had built for myself. But the story doesn't end there. Because when you leave a narcissist, they don't just let you go. The extinction burst is a psychological term for when a behavior spikes right before it stops. Brenda and Mark weren't done. 3 days later, I was at my parents' house, icing my ankle. The swelling had gone down, but the bruising was nasty. My dad had set up the crib in the guest room. It felt safe. Then my phone buzzed. A notification from my bank app. Alert. Insufficient funds. I frowned. I had $2,000 in that account. I opened the app. Balance. Minus $45.00. I scrolled through the transaction history. A transfer. External transfer to joint ACCT ending in 4490. I felt the blood drain from my face. I had forgotten. When we first got married, Mark and I opened a joint savings account. I never used it. I kept my money separate. But I had linked my personal checking to it for emergencies years ago and never unlinked it. Mark had access. He had drained my checking account. Every cent I had to my name. Panic, cold and sharp, seized my chest. I couldn't breathe. I was jobless, technically, since I couldn't work without my laptop, which was still in a box. Homeless and now broke.
Dad.
I screamed. He came running from the kitchen, a spatula in hand.
What?
Is it Leo? The money. I choked out. Mark took the money. He emptied my account. My dad looked at the phone. He didn't get angry this time. He got thoughtful. Okay. He wants to play dirty. Dad, that was everything. Diapers, food. It's theft, Dad said. But it's civil theft because it's a joint link. Police won't touch it.
He knows that.
Brenda told him to do it. So, I'm destitute? No, Dad said. You're in a war. And in a war, you don't cry about lost ground. You counterattack. He sat down at the table. Do you remember the tax returns? I blinked. What? The tax returns from last year. You filed jointly, right?
Yes.
Brenda has a guy who does them. Did you sign them? I thought back. No. Mark said he signed for me electronically to save time. A slow smile spread across my dad's face. Sarah, did you review them?
No.
Log into the IRS portal. Reset your password if you have to.
I did.
It took 10 minutes of fumbling with security questions. When I finally got in and pulled up the PDF of our 1040 form, my dad leaned over my shoulder. His finger traced the lines. Income. Deductions. There, he pointed. Look at the dependents. I looked. Mark listed Leo.
Okay.
Then I looked closer. He listed his mother, Brenda, as a dependent. She lives in $1 million house, I said. She has a pension. Exactly, Dad said. That's tax fraud. What else? We scrolled down. Business expenses. Mark worked in sales for a logistics company. He had written off $15,000 for a home office. Mark plays video games in the den, I said. He doesn't have a home office. And his company provides an office.
Fraud, Dad said.
And since he forged your electronic signature, you can claim innocent spouse relief, but he is going to have a very bad time. What do we do? We don't call the IRS, Dad said. Not yet. That's the nuclear option. We use it as leverage. He pulled out his phone. Text him. What do I say? Write this. I saw the bank transfer. I also saw the tax returns where you claimed your mother as a dependent and forged my signature. Return the money by 5 p.m., plus the $2,000 from the joint savings, or I forward the PDF to the IRS fraud hotline. I typed it out. My thumb hovered over the send button. I was scared. I was scared of his anger. Push it, Dad said softly. He's not your husband anymore, Sarah. He's your opponent. I hit send. We waited. 10 minutes.
20.
My phone rang. It was Brenda. Don't answer, Dad said. It rang again. Then a text from Brenda. You ungrateful brat. We are calling the police for blackmail. Ignore her, Dad said. Wait for the money. At 4:58 p.m., my phone buzzed. Bank alert. Deposit of $4,200 received. I stared at the screen. He had sent it back. All of it. Plus extra, probably to keep me quiet. I let out a breath. I felt like I'd been holding for a year. It worked. Of course it worked, Dad said, going back to the stove to flip a pancake. Bullies are always cowards when you shine a light on them. The next few months were a blur of lawyer meetings, custody hearings, and therapy. But that night, the night of the rain and the night of the tax return, those were the moments that forged the new reality. About 6 months later, I was living in a small apartment. It was tiny, the carpets were old, but it was mine. I paid the rent. I bought the groceries. I was at the park with Leo on a Tuesday afternoon. My ankle had healed, though it still clicked when it rained. I was pushing him on the swing when I saw a car slow down on the street. It was the black Silverado. My dad. He parked and walked over to the fence. He didn't come in. He just leaned on the chain link, watching Leo laugh. He looks happy, Dad said. He is, I smiled. We both are. I have something for you, Dad said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. I walked over. What is it? Open it. I opened the envelope. Inside was a check. For $38,000. I looked at him, confused. Dad, what is this? I told you I put a lien on the house, he said, casually kicking a dirt clod. Brenda tried to refinance her mortgage last week to pay off some credit card debt. She couldn't close until the lien was cleared. She had to cut a check for the renovations. My jaw dropped. She paid it. She had no choice. It was pay you or lose her interest rate lock. I looked at the check. It was more money than I had ever seen in one place. It was my freedom. It was my future. I can't take this, I said, tearing up. You paid for the lawyers. You helped me with the deposit. Put it in a college fund for Leo, Dad said. Or buy a better car. I don't care. It's your money, Sarah. You earned it. You paid for it in sweat, and you paid for it in tears. He pushed off the fence. I gotta go. Mom's making roast. Dad, I called out. He stopped and looked back. Why didn't you ever say anything? Before? When I married him? Dad looked at me, his eyes soft. Because you wouldn't have listened. You had to walk that road yourself. I just had to make sure I was there when you were ready to get off it. He got in his truck and drove away. I stood there in the park, holding the check, watching my son swing back and forth, higher and higher, reaching for the sky. People ask me now, how did you leave? Expecting a story about a singular moment of bravery. But bravery isn't a lightning bolt. Bravery is a construction project. It's built on the foundation of people who love you, reinforced by the steel of your own dignity, and sometimes it's saved by a grumpy old engineer in a Chevy Silverado who knows that sometimes, to fix a broken structure, you have to tear it down to the studs and start over. I put the check in my pocket, grabbed Leo out of the swing, and kissed his chubby cheek. Come on, baby, I said. Let's go home. And for the first time in my life, I knew exactly where that was.